The Lighthouse Pentecostal Church here in Alice Springs. So glad that you're joining us. This morning we have part 2 of our 3-part series that we're going through. Knowing Your Adversary, or Know Your Adversary is the title of the message this morning. We're going to start in 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 8 and then go through some verses there. So come along, join us. Let's see what the Bible has to say about knowing our adversary. First Peter chapter 5, verse 8. There we go. Just to recap, this is part 2 from last week. I want to preach for a little while this morning on Know Your Adversary. Last week we read from the book of Judges and a few other books, part 1, discussing the war that we wage. Understanding the war that we are in, and there's certain things that as Christians we must understand. We need to understand. And so when an army gets ready for battle, when they get ready for battle, they have to understand the war that they're in. That was last week. You have to understand the war that they're in. You've heard, if you watch a movie here and there, you've heard it said, what, you brought a knife to a gunfight. Okay, you know, or something like that. Armies have to understand, okay, what kind of war is this? And we need to line up making sure that we're bringing the right equipment to the battle. More so in historical times than nowadays, but you have to bring the right equipment to the battle. And so we have to understand, that was last week, understanding the war that we wage is a war of a spiritual kind, a spiritual war, and we must wage it likewise, not trying to tear down or hurt people or anything like that. We must wage a spiritual warfare. And now this morning, part 2 of the 3-part series, we are going to discuss knowing your adversary. It is important that the army knows, that the military knows who it is that they're up against, who it is that they're fighting against. In the Battle of Waterloo, the British knew the French and knew Napoleon and how he led, and based on that knowledge was able to overcome Napoleon. Despite how many people had failed to overcome him before, they were able to overcome Napoleon with an understanding of how he fought and his strategies and his plans. So we must know our adversary. 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 8 says, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour." John 10:10. Let's turn to John 10:10. As you're turning there, your adversary is not out to play games. John chapter 10 verse 10. Your adversary is not out to play games. He's going around like a roaring lion, the scripture says, seeking whom he may devour. He's not out to have fun. He's not out to just to play games, to mess around. He is on a mission to see who he can devour. John chapter 10 verse 10 says, the thief cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. So Jesus came to seek and to save that which was lost. Jesus came that we might have life, that all humanity, that none should perish, might have life, and life more abundantly. that we might live life here on this earth and after to our fullest in Christ. But the enemy comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. What is it that the enemy wants to destroy? Let's turn to Luke chapter 22, verse 31. What is it that the enemy wants more than anything? More than your possessions, more than anything that the enemy wants to take. You see, when you go up against, and when an army goes up against another army, as we read about last week, Barak from Israel and Deborah from Israel, they were chasing down one man, Sisera, the captain of the army. He was the crux, the central point of Jabin, the Canaanites' army. He was the captain. He was what they were after. And like any army, there is a central focus that an army is after, and the enemy works the same way. The enemy works and is looking to steal and to kill and to destroy one specific thing. Luke chapter 22, verse 31, this is Jesus speaking. And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for thee, that thy faith fail not. And when thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren. That thy faith fail not. The one thing and the central thing that the enemy is after in your life is your faith. Is your faith. He wants beyond anything your faith. He wants to take it. He wants to destroy it. He wants to get it. Your faith. Hebrews says that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. While we yet have faith, the enemy is in trouble. While we have faith, the enemy is in trouble. It doesn't matter how dark the circumstances may be. It doesn't matter how dark the situation may be. It doesn't matter what the doctors may say. It doesn't matter what may be said against us or what may happen. While there is yet faith, the enemy is in trouble. Because when there's faith, God can do anything. God said, I don't need you to have a lot of faith. Just a little bit of faith. As of the size of a grain of mustard seed. Just a little bit of faith. Brothers and sisters, you may feel wrung out. You may feel with this heat and this weather and with your jobs and the different things, you may feel wore out, exhausted. But if you can have just a little bit of faith, that, hey, this is just temporary. God will see me through. If you can have just a little bit, anything is possible. Anything is possible. We see it time and time again through Scripture. People with just a little bit of faith. Noah, just a little bit of faith. Never seen rain before. Didn't know what dew was on the ground. Hadn't seen this stuff before. But God said, hey, rain's coming. Noah's like, okay. God's like, flood's coming. He's like, okay, I kind of know what that is. Maybe, floods are coming. Build a boat. And just a little bit of faith. I'm sure discouragement set in. I'm sure disappointment set in. When you consider it took him around 100 to 120 years to build the ark. Him and his family. To build the ark. Surely around year 60, year 70, year 80, a little bit of disappointment kicked in. A little bit of discouragement kicked in, but it didn't really matter. Because through all the disappointment, through all the discouragement, when he went out and preached and people, nobody came and nobody believed. When he went out and preached in the marketplaces and nobody understood and believed what he was saying, he still went out and did it. Why? Because he had just a little bit of faith. Just a little bit of faith that said it doesn't matter that it's blue skies 365 days of the year. It doesn't matter that I haven't even seen a drop of rain for 80 years. God said rain is coming. And so rain is coming. And so I will keep building this ark. Just a little bit of faith. And we read it time and time again. People who were not perfect. People who had their battles, had their struggles, had their difficulties. But along with all that, along with all their baggage and all the things that they went through life with, they also had their faith and their belief. No matter how bad the situation may have looked, they had it. Job, just a little bit of faith. One by one, the servants come to him and tell him, your sheep have been destroyed, your camels have been stolen, your donkeys have been killed, all the servants have been killed except for me. And finally, all your children have been killed. Job's response is to fall down and worship God. As we read through the book of Job, we see the thief that came to steal and to kill and to destroy. The enemy's come to steal your faith. He wants to try and take it, just like he did with Job. He tried to steal it through his possessions. Through his material things, he tried to steal it. He tried to steal his faith through that. He tried to come out and said, well, Job's faith. The enemy's like, Job's faith is in his sheep and his oxen. And if it's not in that, it's definitely in his kids. So we're going to steal the faith from Job. But Job, his response let the enemy know, hey, you may have stolen my possessions, but even though something is stolen, oftentimes it's still there. I've had some stuff stolen. I couldn't tell you where it is. I had a tripod stolen. I couldn't tell you where it is, but I'm pretty sure it's still existing somewhere. Faith cannot be stolen. Faith cannot be stolen. The enemy will try to steal it. He will try to steal it. And at times you may feel like it's gone. You may feel like, well, I don't know where it is. I don't know where my faith is. I don't know what's wrong with me this week, but God, I just don't feel you. I just don't know what's happening. I don't know what's going on. That's when we need to be like the lady with the 10 coins. You need to find it. Find that faith. The enemy will seek to steal it through your possessions and things like that. Does he really want your possessions? Does the enemy really want your car or does he really want to give you a flat tire or whatever it may be? No. What he wants is for you to lose your faith in God. That's what he wants. He wants you to lose your faith. Then the enemy will try to kill your faith. He'll try to kill it. We cannot have faith in mankind. Your faith must be placed in God and God alone. Job, all this stuff's happening. All this stuff's going on, and then some friends come around. They tell him, man, you must have sinned something bad for all this stuff to be happening. You must have sinned really bad, Job. He'll try to kill your faith. Because we can have our belief, our faith. Sometimes we have it in the wrong places. Sometimes we have it in mankind. We have it in people. We must make sure that our faith is not in someone, but our faith is in God. Because the enemy will try to take it. Job's friends came around and said, look, I don't know what you did, but something terrible, obviously. Something really bad. But Job's faith, what was his response? Job's response is to worship God. Always to worship God. Because his faith was not in his possessions. It couldn't be stolen. His faith was not in his friends and those around about him. As much as we want our friends and those around us to support, our faith cannot be in that. Because the enemy will try to manipulate and use and try to kill your faith through that. I'm a bit of a sports fan. Okay, I watch just one sport, ice hockey. Chelsea knows I like my ice hockey. Brother Maxwell, you know, I've mentioned it a few times while you've been here. I like my ice hockey. And I believe every time that my team, there's 82 games in a season, okay, in a regular season. I believe every time my team takes the ice, they're going to win. Every season is our season. It's our season. The season starts, yet this is our season. Our time to shine. This year, they're bottom of the ladder. We're the worst team in the league. We're bottom of the ladder. We got like 28 games left, and the coach is preparing for next season with trades and stuff like that. I'm like, man. But I still watch, and we played a team yesterday, one of our rivals, and I believed we were going to win. Bottom of the ladder, they were top of the ladder. I believed we were going to win. It didn't matter what paper said. And you know what? We took them to overtime, and we lost in overtime. But I believed we were going to win. Every game, when I sit down to watch it, yeah, we're going to win this game. This is ours. Doesn't matter what paper says. This is ours. But you know, I have a bit of fun with that. But my faith cannot be in my ice hockey team. My faith for life cannot be in my ice hockey team, because they will let me down. They will lose games. I know it's difficult to believe, but they will lose games. And they will let me down. They will let me down. And so our faith, the devil is after it. The devil wants it more than anything. He wants to take it more than anything, because he knows without it, without your faith, your hope will soon fall. Without your faith, your life will begin to lose hope. Your life will begin to become a blur, and things will be blurred, and your life, as they say, will become like a country song. I lost my dog, lost my house, all that stuff. Your life without faith in God will begin to be shaken. And that's why the devil wants it. But he doesn't just want to steal it. He doesn't just want to try and kill it. Scripture says he wants to destroy. He's come to steal, kill, and destroy. He wants no even memory of your faith in your life. He wants to destroy it completely. And we see this in Job's life, where Job gets sick and he has boils all over him and everything like that, and covered head to toe in boils. And his wife tells him, why don't you just curse God and die? Why don't you just curse God and die? That's really nice encouragement, isn't it? When I get sick just with the flu, the world's coming to an end. Okay, Chelsea will tell you, it's the end of the world when I get sick just with the flu. Job is here, covered head to toe with boils, and everything's gone wrong, and life is a mess. And now his wife tells him just to curse God and die. But there's something that the enemy didn't realize. Job's faith isn't in his possessions. Job's faith isn't in mankind or those around about us. Job's faith isn't even in his loved ones and in his health and how he's feeling. But his faith is in God. His faith is in God, who will never change, who says He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He never changes. He's as solid as rock. It'd be like trying to push Uluru an inch that way or that way. He'll never move. He'll never change. And when your faith is in that, it doesn't matter what goes on around about. It's like Jesus told Peter. He said, Simon, Simon, behold, the devil desires you, that he may sift you as wheat. He may throw you in the air and sift you. Kind of like the winnowing process that they used to go through, where they would shove a fork into the wheat that they've brought in, throw it in the air, and what was wheat and chaff, the chaff blew away, the wheat fell back down. Chaff and wheat both look the same, except wheat's a bit heavier. And so the wind would carry the chaff off, and the wheat would fall back down. So Jesus says, Peter, the devil wants to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed that your family would be okay, and that life would still be okay, and your job would be okay, and your car would be taken care of, and your house wouldn't, no damage would come to it, like that. You know what Jesus said? No. He didn't, in case you're wondering. He said, I have prayed that your faith fail not. Because even though the farmer is trying to get rid of the chaff, he wants to keep the wheat. He's trying to get rid of the chaff. He doesn't want to destroy the wheat. He wants to just separate the chaff from the wheat. Even though that's what his goal is, he still has to throw the wheat in the air with the chaff. And then in the air, in all the chaos that life can bring, the wind clears out the chaff and the wheat falls back down. Brothers and sisters, the enemy is after your faith. Because when your faith is gone, the wind will carry you off. Your faith is what gives you the weight to bring you back down. It's the only difference between wheat and chaff. Wheat's a bit heavier. And as Christians, it's our faith that makes us a bit heavier, that brings us back down. That when life goes crazy, because our faith is in God, because our faith is there, it comes us back down. What's Hebrews say? Faith is the substance. Faith is the substance. It's the substance. Faith has a literal substance. It's not some mystical, magical, fairyland thing. Faith is a very real and a very tangible thing. And it's that brings us back down. That's why the enemy wants it so much. We must understand this, that the enemy, he's not after your car. He's not after your family. He's not after your possessions. He's not after your house. He's not after your job. He's not after your pay raise or anything like that. He's after your faith. And so I close with this. How does the enemy attack and get this? The enemy's main tactic and his biggest tactic is through fear. Through fear. He'll try and fear you into losing your faith. I can only imagine how scared Job was when he saw all this stuff happening around about him. But fear in itself cannot destroy you. Fear cannot in itself destroy you. Yeah, I may be, Chelsea worked night shift Friday night. And I was asleep, right? That's what you do at night time. I was asleep. And anyway, I remember I turned the outside light off. Right? This is just outside our window. I turned it off. Anyways, I wake up, I hear noise in the living room. And I don't even know what the time is. I just hear noise and I see light coming through the window. Right? Instantly my heart rate starts going like 150 beats a minute. And I jump up, yell from the room and charge out there to find Chelsea. She'd got home from work and the sun had risen. But I was in such a deep sleep. But I tell you what, in that moment, there was a tangible, because I wasn't going to back down, but there was a tangible bit of fear as I was storming out of the bedroom to find out who was there. You know, it was a tangible bit of fear. But the fear didn't destroy me. The fear didn't kill me. Fear cannot destroy your faith. But you see, God said, you can do all this to Job. God told Satan, you can do this to Job. You can't touch him. And then he allowed him to touch him and make him sick. He said, but you can't kill him. You see, things can happen to us, but brothers and sisters, I can let you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that God's saying, okay, but you can't kill him. You can't kill him. And so the enemy uses these tactics and these things to try and fear us into what? Into destroying our faith ourselves. The enemy cannot destroy your faith. He cannot kill it. But if he can fear you to the point and scare you to the point that you destroy it yourself, then he has succeeded. This is how the enemy attacks. This is how he works. He does not work by literally just, he cannot just come and destroy you. He cannot just come and destroy your faith. But he will attack with fear. He will attack by trying to make you scared. And the action that you take based on that fear will determine the outcome. The action that you take based on the fear will determine the outcome. It blows my mind. It blows my mind where people say, Pastor, life's just got really crazy. I just can't make it to church too much. And I'm like, the solution to why life is crazy is in the Bible. It's with God. That's the solution. The faith in God is the solution. That's the only thing. You hold on to it. I love Teddy Roosevelt's quote, one of his sayings. He has quite a few, but one of his sayings, he says, when you reach the end of your rope, you tie a knot at the end and hang on. When you reach the end of your rope, God knows where you're at. He knows what's going on. He knows what the devil's doing. He knows the attacks that are happening. When you reach the end of your rope, you just need to hang on. Do what you know to do. Just hang on. That Sunday school song, that children's song, read your Bible, pray every day. You just do what you can. If you can only pray 5 minutes, pray 5 minutes. Put some music on. Worship to it. The enemy attacks by fear, and if we could have some music. The enemy attacks by fear. It's a tactic that we all use, that in military terms, that the military uses. Who's heard of a smoke screen? Right? The military uses smoke screens, uses all sorts of stuff to make the enemy afraid of what may come out of the smoke. Of what may come out of the smoke. We don't know exactly what's there. What may come out of it. The enemy uses just the same. Smoke screens. So that we can't see our way. But you know, there's something that the military does that's really clever. When the enemy, when you know, you got two armies and one does just smoke screens and fancy stuff, right? The other army, they have a thing that they do that's really clever. It's quite incredible. Because they can't see what's going on. You would have probably remembered like 10 years ago or so, the dust storms happening in Iraq and things like that. They can't see what's going on. What do? They call someone who can. It's really smart, isn't it? They call someone who can see what's going on. Brothers and sisters, the enemy will use smoke screens and fear to make us try and make a decision and an action. We can destroy our faith ourselves in a time when we don't see what's happening. Or we can contact God. We can go to God, who sees what's going on, who sees what's happening. We can contact someone who sees it all and let Him guide us. Let Him direct us. I know that was really deep, wasn't it? Contact someone who can see it, who sees what's going on, and let them guide you. The enemy, let's stand this morning. The enemy cannot destroy you. 1 Peter 5:8 says, your enemy, your adversary, is like a roaring lion, seeking whom he will devour. No. Seeking whom he wants to devour. No. It says, seeking whom he may devour. You have to give him permission to destroy you, to destroy your faith. He cannot do it. You have to give him permission to destroy your faith.